to another solo episode of Legacy Her Way. This is a podcast where we're building something, aren't we? We're building families, we're building careers, we're building businesses. And that's what this podcast is all about. Women building and creating success on their own terms and in their own ways. I'm so glad you're here today. Whether you are driving the kids somewhere, maybe you are doing laundry, maybe you're working out while listening to the podcast. I listen to podcasts either in the car while driving or getting ready in the mornings. So whatever you're doing, I want you to know that I see you. We all want to be seen, don't we? But I see you. Today, we're talking about something that has probably been on your mind. Whether you've said it out loud or not, you've probably thought about it. So we're talking about planning. And more specifically, we're going to get honest about why most of us plan and whether the reason we're doing it is actually working for us or is it working against us. I want to start with this question, and I want you to sit with it for a second. When you think about getting your affairs in order, your will, your finances, your insurance, what happens to your house, your business, what you leave behind, what's the first feeling that comes up? For most women, it's not peace. It's not clarity. It's fear. Fear that something bad is going to happen. Fear that you'll die soon and leave your family in a mess. Fear that your kids will fight over your things. I hear that a lot. Fear that the wrong person will make decisions for you if you can't make them yourself. Fear that you did something wrong. Fear that you didn't do enough. Gosh, how many of us fear that we didn't do enough? And here's the thing, that fear, it's being used to sell us on planning. I'm an estate planning attorney. I see it all the time. There's this fear-based marketing. And I'm guilty of it as well because fear motivates us. But financial advisors, estate attorneys, insurance companies, so many of us and them lead with the worst case scenario. What happens to your family if you're gone tomorrow? And yes, that matters. I'm not saying it doesn't matter because it does. That's the question that we often think about, isn't it? But when fear is the primary driver of how we plan, something could go wrong. We either freeze up entirely and don't plan it at all, because who wants to spend a Saturday morning thinking about dying, or go sit with some attorney who you probably don't know and discuss dying? Or we do just enough to make the anxiety quiet down and then we never revisit it. Maybe we sign some papers, file them away, and never talk about it again. Neither of those is legacy. It's really just survival. Now, let me introduce you to something different, something I'm calling care-based planning. And once I explain it, I think you're going to recognize it immediately because it sounds a lot like how we already think about planning and think about the people we love. Care-based planning starts not with what if I die, but with what do I want my life and the lives of the people I love to actually look like. It starts with values instead of fear. It starts with relationships instead of risk. It starts with the question, who am I planning for? And what do I want them to feel when they think about what I left behind? I say in my practice all the time, I start with people, not papers. And that's kind of where this is coming from. Here's the real difference. Fear-based planning says, I need a will so my kids don't fight. Care-based planning says, I want my children to know that I thought about each of them as individuals, what they need, what they're capable of, what they would actually do, and what would actually help them versus what might hurt them. That may sound like a small difference in wording, but it's not a small difference in the outcome. Let me give you a story. I'm going to call her Diane. She's she's going to represent a lot of people that I know, a lot of women I know. She's kind of like many of us. So Diane is 55. She lives in Alabama, of course. She worked for 30 years, raised 2 kids, mostly on her own after a divorce. She kept the house. She built a small catering business from scratch that she is super proud of, and she should be. She worked hard to create that catering business. She has a mother with dementia who she helps care for. Many of us in this age range are kind of in that sandwich generation, aren't we? We're caring for a parent and caring for children. She has a little bit of retirement savings, not as much as she'd like though. And she has been meaning to get her estate plan done for about 6 years, but between children, business, mom, caregiving, it just hasn't happened yet. Every time she thinks about doing it, she gets this dread in her stomach because every time she's tried to start the process, whether it's Googling it at midnight or sitting across from an advisor, the whole conversation is about what could go wrong. What happens if she's incapacitated? What happens when she dies? What taxes will eat up her estate? What her ex-husband might try to claim? I get that question a lot. She leaves every one of those conversations feeling worse than when she walked in, so she just keeps putting it off. Now, what if instead someone sat down with Diane and said, let's talk about what you've built. Let's talk about your catering business and what you'd want to happen to it. Do you want one of your kids to have the chance to run it? Do you want to sell it and leave them cash? Do you want to gift it to a former employee who helped you build it? Let's talk about your mother. What do you want her care to look like? What resources do you want to set aside for that? Let's talk about the home you've worked so hard for. What does the house mean to you? What would it mean to you to be able to leave it to your daughter? That's a different conversation. That is care-based planning. And I promise you, Diane shows up differently for that conversation. She stays for it, she finishes it, and when it's done, she doesn't feel like she just stared death in the face. She feels like she just did something loving for her family. Now, I want to get practical with you about this because this is a podcast for women who we do things. And I've said from day one of the podcast that we want to have real conversation. So let me give you a specific place where fear-based planning and care-based planning show up differently and what you can do about it. Fear-based planning tells us, don't talk about it. It'll upset people. It'll make them think you're sick or dying, or it'll start some family drama. So we keep our plans to ourselves. Our kids don't know what we have. Our spouse doesn't know where things are. Our siblings don't know what we want. Care-based planning says the most loving thing you can do is let the people who love you know your wishes, so they are never left guessing in the worst moment of their lives. It also means telling them everything about where you have bank accounts, where you're keeping your important documents. I mean, there's so much that you as a loving, caring person can do to prepare those who you love for the worst moment of their lives. This doesn't have to be a formal sit down, let's sit around the dining room table. It can be as simple as, hey, I've been thinking about some things and I want you to know where to find my documents if you ever need them. And I want to talk to you about a few things that are important to me. These are my wishes. That one conversation, it could be 10 or 15 minutes, can change everything for your family. Legacy Her Way is proudly sponsored by Huntsville Estate Planning Lawyer because legacy isn't just about wealth. It's about protecting your family, your vision, and everything you've worked for. Build boldly, preserve it wisely. So here's my challenge for you this week. Think about one person in your life who should know more about your plans than they currently do, and start that conversation. 10 minutes. That's it. Fear-based planning treats a will like the finish line. Check that box and you're done. Don't have to do it ever again. It's done, thank goodness. Care-based planning recognizes that a will is just one piece. And it's actually the piece that only matters after you're gone. What about now? What about who can make decisions for you if you're in the hospital and can't speak for yourself? What about your digital accounts, your business, your retirement funds? Those often don't even go through a will. They go to whoever's listed as a beneficiary. And a lot of women have outdated beneficiaries on accounts because of a divorce or death that they haven't updated. when I have consults with people, I always go through all their financial accounts and who their beneficiaries are. And I always tell them, well, double check that, double check that, double check that. And I've had people come back and go, I'm so glad I double checked it because my ex-husband was still on there. So double check your beneficiaries. This matters for us, especially us women who have been divorced or who have been caregivers. Women who have had gaps in their careers, we are more likely to have complicated financial pictures than a simple will cover. You need to think about a healthcare proxy, a medical power of attorney, a durable power of attorney for your finances. And I get the question a lot. Should there be two different powers of attorney? Maybe, maybe not. I generally do one. That's the medical and financial, but there can be multiple. And yes, you want to make sure you've got beneficiary designations on all of your financial accounts, checking, savings, money market, all those things. Those override the will. It doesn't matter what your will says. If you've named a beneficiary on your checking account, the money from your checking account goes to the beneficiary. It does not matter what your will says. A lot of people don't understand that and know that concept. So just be very clear and understand that whoever you name as a beneficiary, that's who gets your money. So review those beneficiaries. Make sure you have them updated. And this is an act of love, not an act of morbidity, because you're planning to make it as easy as possible for those who you love. Now, there's also where care-based planning gets really powerful for women in midlife, because here's what I hear from women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s all the time. I've spent my whole life taking care of everybody else. I don't even know what I want. Planning is an invitation to figure that out. What do you want the next chapter to look like? Financially, personally, in terms of your time and your work? What are you building toward? Not just what are you leaving behind. For so many of us, there's a business idea we haven't started, a community we want to invest in, a grandchild we want to be present for, a health issue we've been putting off dealing with, looking in the mirror at me, that we've been put off dealing with because we're just too busy caring for everyone else. Care-based planning makes you part of the plan, not just as the person who leaves things behind, but as the person who still has life to live. This is about planning for your life, not planning for the end of your life. That might mean talking to a financial advisor, not about how to die gracefully, but how to retire with dignity on your own terms. It might mean doing a healthcare directive, not just to protect yourself, but to relieve your adult children of the burden of guessing what you'd want. Because that decision to pull the plug or not pull the plug, it's hard. And you want to be sure you set your family up to make the decision and take it out of their hands. It might be writing a will with a lawyer, not on your own. It might mean writing something that's not necessarily a legal document, but a letter to the people that you love. Like you're telling people about your life. You're leaving them maybe a love letter, a love note of, you're leaving a letter to your child about how much you love and appreciate them, some of the qualities you've seen in them, what your hopes are for them, and what you want them to remember about you. That is a legacy, a real one. Now, I want to speak to something else for a moment, because if you are a Southern woman like me, now you've heard I was born and raised in Alabama, you likely know what I'm about to say. We were raised to take care of everybody else first, to be strong, to not burden people. Man, I am that to a T. To handle things quietly, just do your thing. To not talk about money, to not talk about death, to smile and say, I'm fine, even when we're exhausted to the bone. Now, I will tell you, the last few weeks I've been exhausted. But we're trained to always say we're fine. How you doing? What's going on today? How you doing? Oh, I'm fine. How you doing? I'm fine. That's our general conversation, right? Now, I absolutely love being from Alabama. I love the women who raised me. My mom was tremendous. But some of what we were taught, especially around planning, may be what's holding us back. Not talking about money doesn't protect your family. It leaves them scrambling. If they don't know, and I meet with people all the time after their parent dies and they're not sure where they had bank accounts. They're not sure of anything about their lives, and they're having to go through drawers and filing cabinets, looking under beds. I mean, you don't know. So not talking about the money things doesn't protect your family. They're scrambling. Not talking about what you want doesn't make things easier for your kids. It makes them harder. And sometimes it tears the families apart when you haven't had the conversations. Being strong doesn't mean handling it alone. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is sit down, write it out, talk it through, and say, I love you well enough to have done this work. It was hard on me, but you are worth it. That is strength. That is legacy. So here's what I want to leave you today. Fear will always be in the room when we talk about planning. That is human. You're going to always hear advertisements based around fear because studies have shown fear is a great motivator, so that's why advertisers and marketers use it. You don't have to pretend it isn't there, but you get to decide whether fear is driving the car or whether love is. Because at the end of the day, planning isn't about preparing to die. It is honoring the life you have built. It's honoring the people you love and honoring the woman you are. It is about saying, I was here. I cared. I left this place better than I found it. That is a legacy worth building. Before you leave today, before I let you go, here are 3 things I want you to take with you today. 1, identify one conversation you've been avoiding around your plans and have it this week. It doesn't have to be long. It just has to start. It just has to be that starting point. 2, pull up one document, just one, and check it. Maybe it's a beneficiary form. Maybe you just reach out to your bank and say, hey, do I have a beneficiary listed on my checking account? Maybe it's looking at a life insurance policy to make sure your beneficiaries are up to date. But make sure it reflects the life you're living now, not 10 years ago, but now. And 3, give yourself permission to plan for your life, not just your death, but for your life. What do you want to do the next 10 years? What do you want the next 10 years to look like? Start there. It's not about planning for your death. It's planning for your life and planning for the lives of the ones you love. So you've built something, family, business, whatever it may be, you've built it. It's now time for you to protect it. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Legacy Her Way. I hope this has been beneficial for you. If you heard something that you liked, you can share this episode with others so that they also can think through care-based planning versus fear-based planning. Because that fear is going to get your attention, but the care and love that you have for those around you is what's going to motivate you to actually act and plan to live. If this episode spoke to you, please subscribe to Legacy Her Way and again, share it with others. You can also leave a comment. Comments are very helpful. I'd love to hear from you. But share this episode, subscribe to Legacy Her Way so you never miss an episode, and I will see you in the next conversation. Bye.